The killer of Jeffrey Dahmer. Just 2 years and 2 attempts were required for someone to end Dahmer's life, and Christopher Scarver was the one who struck the Milwaukee cannibal to death. Jeffrey Dahmer is considered one of America's most heinous serial murderers. After confessing guilt to the rape, murder, dismemberment, and swallowing of multiple victims, he was finally sentenced to 15 consecutive years imprisonment in 1992, although he only lived to serve 3 years of those sentences. Given that Jeffrey Dahmer did not get the death punishment for his horrible crimes, you might be interested in learning how he died. Let's dive deep into this video and see who killed Jeffrey Dahmer and why. The Columbia Correctional Facility in Wisconsin served as the residence for both men, Dahmer and Scarver. Despite committing heinous crimes, Dahmer did not receive capital punishment, even though he yearned for it. In 1853, Wisconsin became the very first state to eliminate the death sentence. Around the same time that Dahmer entered the jail in 1992, Scarver, who was already there serving a 25-year term, also entered. The safety of the serial murderer was a top priority for the prison officials. On November 28, 1994, Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver were given the task of working with Jeffrey Dahmer. When the team was left unattended to work in the prison gym's restroom, Scarver beat Dahmer, as well as Anderson, with a 20-inch iron bar from an exercise machine. Officers searched the area when Anderson left his cell early and discovered Dahmer and Anderson. Anderson, a convicted killer, viciously murdered his wife by stabbing her 5 times in the head and face. Both the victims were transported to a neighboring hospital where Dahmer was pronounced dead an hour later, and Anderson passed away from his wounds 2 days later after being taken off of life support. Scarver had repeatedly slammed Dahmer against the wall, causing significant injuries to his head and face. According to Scarver, Dahmer made no sounds while being assaulted. Who was Christopher Scarver? In 1990, Christopher Scarver was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Stephen Lohman. High school dropout Scarver learned carpentry skills in the Wisconsin Conservation Corps. He believed that, as promised by his supervisor Edward Patz, he would have a full-time employment when the program was completed. Scarver, who had been furious, had gone back to the center to confront Patz about it when the position did not materialize. Patz had been terminated before it could be filled. By that time, Scarver had begun binge drinking and had been a long-time marijuana user. A voice in his head that kept referring to him as the chosen one had also started to motivate him. When Scarver went back to the Corps Center on June 1st to face them, he discovered site manager John Fayen and 27-year-old Steve Lohman, who had taken over for Patz. He had initially demanded money from Lohman while holding him at gunpoint, but when he only got $15, he shot Lohman in the head. Scarver would then shoot Lohman twice more, despite the fact that he was already dead. Fayen offered Lohman a $3,000 check and his credit card to encourage him to go so that he could save his life. Shortly after the event, Scarver was found to be in possession of the cash, gun, and credit card. After being found responsible for killing Lohman, he was given a life sentence, but later said that he knew what he had done was wrong, but wasn't sure why he'd lost it. In 1992, he was moved to the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. Why Christopher killed Dahmer? After executing Dahmer and Anderson, Scarver said that he was commanded by God to do so. A jail officer cited him as saying, "God instructed me to do it." It will be covered on the 6 o'clock news. Jesse Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer are no longer alive. Many people assumed Scarver's motivation for killing Dahmer and Anderson was racial because Dahmer's victims were mostly men of color. Anderson also first led police on a manhunt for 2 black males he suspected of murdering his wife. However, investigators investigating Anderson and Dahmer's killings did not corroborate this notion. Scarver alleges that the serial killer would make prison meals mimic severed limbs and spill packets of ketchup to simulate blood in order to make fun of fellow inmates. 2015 New York Post quote from Scarver, "He would put them where people would be. With some people, including convicts and jail staff, he went too far." Scarver sought to avoid Dahmer because of his conduct, but he constantly carried a news clipping about the cannibal's murders in his pocket. Scarver reacted when he thought Dahmer had poked him in the back. He took a weight room metal bar and challenged Dahmer about his misdeeds. "Because I was so abhorrently repulsed, I asked him whether he did such things. He felt astounded. He quickly began searching for the door. I turned him away. All it took was 2 blows of the bar to Dahmer's skull. Dahmer was declared dead an hour after arriving at the hospital due to a fractured skull." Since prison officials supposedly knew that he wanted the murderer killed, Scarver claimed it was no coincidence that he landed up with Dahmer unattended. As they conveniently vanished just before he killed Dahmer, he claimed that the guards had something to do with what took place. Christopher Scarver received 2 further life sentences and is now incarcerated in a high-security facility in Colorado. He also has a son who was born 27 years ago following his initial imprisonment. Since then, the two have developed a relationship and are exchanging letters. That's the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. Then give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell button for more awesome videos just like this one. Do you think this was the right punishment for the heinous acts of Dahmer? We would love to hear your feedback. Feel free to mention anything that you know in the comments section. Thanks for watching!